The day Mrs. Okafor walked into our class with those old black shoes in her hand, everybody stopped talking. Even boys that always made noise became quiet. I did not know why my heart started beating fast, but something inside me told me that those shoes were not just shoes. They belonged to someone we all knew but had not seen for many weeks. In that moment, the whole class felt cold. I stared at the shoes and something in my chest squeezed as if it wanted to break. Before that day started in such a strange way, everything had been normal for us. Our class was one of the brightest in the school because the sun always came in through the big window beside the desk by the wall. That desk used to be Chidi's desk. For many weeks it had been empty, but the way it looked made it feel as if somebody was still sitting there. The chair faced the blackboard just like all our chairs, but anytime my eyes touched it, I felt small. I kept asking myself why he had not come back. I remember the first day the desk became empty. Chidi just did not come to school. At first, we did not bother. Sometimes people stayed at home when they were not feeling well or when their parents needed help. But the second day came. Then the third day. After 1 week, people started asking questions. All the answers we got from Mrs. Okafor were the same. She said he will come soon. She said we should focus on our books. She said everything was fine. The way she talked made me more confused because she did not look fine. She looked tired. She looked like someone carrying heavy load on her head. Chidi was not my best friend, but he was my seatmate. He did not talk much. He always held his books as if they could fall apart. He always kept his pencils in a small tin that looked too old. Sometimes his shoes had small dust on them because he walked from far, but he knew how to draw, and he liked to draw small houses and trees during break time. I used to watch him sometimes and smile. He always smiled back, even when he was tired. As the days passed without Chidi, the class became different. People did not say it, but all of us kept looking at that desk. Anytime someone new entered the class, their eyes would go straight to the empty seat because it looked lonely. During dictation, I sometimes turned my head by mistake to tell him something, and then I remembered he was not there. It made my stomach twist in a way I could not explain. One Wednesday morning, the principal came into our class. He never came unless something big was happening. He walked in slowly and looked at the empty desk before whispering something into Mrs. Okafor's ear. She nodded and held her chest for a moment. I knew something was wrong, but nobody said anything. Even when he left, Mrs. Okafor stood in front of the class for a few seconds like she was thinking about something she did not want to think about. Then, she told us to open our books. That day when I got home, I tried to remember the last week before Chidi stopped coming. I remembered how he used to sleep in class. Sometimes he came without food for break. Sometimes he rushed home after school as if he did not want anyone to follow him. I noticed these things, but I did not ask him why. I just minded my business. But now, I wished I had asked. The empty desk stayed with us like a shadow. Nobody touched it. Nobody moved the chair. Nobody even leaned on it when we swept the class. It felt like touching it was wrong. It felt like we were waiting for something, but we did not know what. And anytime I looked through the window beside it, the sunlight would fall on the desk and make it shine, like he was calling someone who was not coming. I kept telling myself that he will come back. I kept repeating it the way Mrs. Okafor said it, but a small voice inside me said something else, something I was scared to hear. Then the day came when Mrs. Okafor walked in with those black shoes in her hand. The shoes looked clean but old, like someone washed them with care. She held them tight and walked slowly to the empty desk. My whole body became stiff. I couldn't even breathe well. Something told me that everything was about to change. When Mrs. Okafor placed those black shoes on the empty desk, it felt like the whole classroom stopped breathing. Some people covered their mouths. Some looked at the floor. I could not move. I just stared at the shoes and wondered why she brought them. My chest felt tight, as if all the air in the class was too heavy. For many weeks, we had been waiting for Chidi to walk in with his quiet smile. but instead, it was his shoes that returned. Before anyone could ask anything, Mrs. Okafor walked out of the class. She did not say a word. She did not look back. The moment she left, noise rose in the room like boiling water. People started talking fast and wild. Some said maybe he had traveled and she brought his shoes to keep his place. Others said maybe somebody stole the shoes and the teacher found them. But deep down, inside the place where fear hides, I knew none of those things were true. Those shoes were not a joke, and they were not an accident. I kept staring at them. They were clean but old. The laces were tied together neatly. They reminded me of the way Chidi always kept his things. Gentle, quiet, almost careful. The more I looked at them, the more my stomach twisted. I felt like the shoes were trying to tell a story none of us wanted to hear. The bell rang for break time, but nobody rushed outside. Even the boys that used to jump over the desks sat still. I stood up slowly and moved closer to the desk. Adaize grabbed my hand and told me not to touch the shoes. I asked her why, and she said she did not know, but something about the whole thing scared her. I pulled my hand back and stepped away. When break ended, Mrs. Okafor returned. She looked like someone who cried, but did not want anyone to notice. She told us to copy notes from the board. Her voice was low, like she was pushing the words through a small hole. Nobody asked her about the shoes. Nobody asked about Chidi. It was like all our questions were stuck in our throats. During maths period, the rain started. It bet loudly on the roof, and water ran down the window beside Chidi's desk. The rain made the classroom cold. I held my book, but I could not understand anything the teacher was saying. My eyes kept going back to those shoes. Rain or not, they stayed where she put them, sitting on the desk like a reminder of something we did not want to remember. After school closed that day, I did not go home immediately. I stood by the door and watched the class. Everybody was packing their bags fast, trying not to look at the shoes. Some people whispered as they left, but nobody went close to the desk again. The room felt empty and loud at the same time. I walked slowly to my bag. When I bent to pick it, I saw something on the floor beside the desk. It was a small paper folded in half. I picked it up and opened it. It was one of Chidi's drawings. He had drawn a small house with a tree beside it and a little boy sitting outside. The boy looked sad. I knew that drawing. I had seen him working on it one day before he stopped coming to school. Why was it on the floor now? Had it fallen from his locker? Did Mrs. Okafor put it there too? I held the paper tight and looked at the shoes again. For the first time since they arrived, I felt a cold fear move slowly through my body. Something was wrong. Something had been wrong for a long time, and I knew the empty desk was finally about to speak.
That night, I could not sleep. I kept thinking about the shoes, the drawing, and the way Mrs. Okafor walked out of the class as if her heart was too heavy for her body. I lay on my bed and listened to the sound of my mother washing plates in the kitchen, but even that sound felt far away. My mind stayed inside that classroom. I opened the folded paper again. The drawing looked simple, but the sadness in it was loud. The boy in the picture had no smile. His shoulders were bent. Even the tree beside him looked tired. I tried to remember the day I saw Chidi drawing it. He had been quiet that morning, more than usual. His eyes looked like they were carrying water that refused to fall. I asked him why he was not eating his break food, and he told me he was not hungry. That was the last real talk we ever had. The next morning in school, nobody touched the shoes. The class looked strange, like the walls were listening. Mrs. Okafor entered the room with slow steps. She greeted us, but her voice had no strength. When her eyes touched the shoes, she paused for a moment. Then she faced the board and started teaching. It was as if she wanted the day to move fast, but time refused. Every minute felt heavy. During social studies, Adaze leaned close to me and whispered that she heard something. She said her cousin in primary 6 told her that teachers in the staff room had been talking quietly about Chidi for weeks. Not loud talk, but small whispers, the kind adults do when they are scared of the truth. She said one teacher told another teacher that the matter was delicate. Another teacher said it was painful. Another one said they did what they could, but things got worse. When she finished talking, my hands went cold. I wanted to ask what matter, but I already knew. I just did not want to say it. The whole class felt it. Even the noisemakers were quiet these days. It was as if we were all waiting for someone to tell us what our hearts already feared. Later that day, something happened that made everything feel more real. The school gate man came to our class to call Mrs. Okafor. When she stepped outside, I stood up a little so I could see through the door. A thin woman wearing a faded wrapper was standing there. Her feet were dusty. Her eyes were red, as if she had cried before coming. She held a nylon bag in her hand and kept rubbing her palms together. When I saw her face, my heart dropped. I knew her. She was Chidi's mother. She and Mrs. Okafor spoke quietly outside, but the door let some of their words slip inside, like air. I heard the mother say, "Thank you." I heard her say, "He tried." I heard her say she did not want him to feel forgotten. I heard her say she brought what was left. She opened the nylon bag a little, and I saw something black inside. When she left, Mrs. Okafor stood outside for a long time. She used her hand to wipe her face, took a deep breath, then walked back into the class. She tried to smile, but the smile broke before it reached her eyes. She told us to open our notes, but her voice was shaking. As she moved past me, something fell from her hand. It was the nylon bag the woman brought. She bent and picked it quickly, holding it close to her chest. When I looked at the bag, I knew it held something important, something final, something connected to those shoes. That night, I sat on my bed and held Chidi's drawing again. I could not stop thinking about his mother and the way she looked. I kept hearing her broken voice. I kept seeing the nylon bag. I finally understood that the empty desk was not just empty. It was waiting for the truth to sit on it. And the truth was getting closer.
The next morning, the sky was dark, even though it was not yet 7. It felt like the whole world was holding its breath. When I reached school, I walked into the classroom slowly. The shoes were still on the desk, sitting quietly like they owned the space. Nobody had touched them. Nobody even walked too close to that side of the room. It was as if we were afraid of waking something. I sat down and placed my bag under my chair. My stomach felt tight and empty. I kept thinking about the nylon bag Chidi's mother brought the day before. I kept thinking of the way she held her hands together, like her heart was breaking inside her chest. I knew something was coming, something that would change everything, but I did not know how close it was. Assembly that morning felt strange. Even the teachers looked worried. People kept glancing at our class as if they knew something we did not know yet. When we returned to the classroom, Mrs. Okafor was already sitting at her table. She never sat before class started, so seeing her there made my legs feel weak. She looked tired in a way that scared me. Not the kind of tired someone feels after walking long distance, but the kind that comes from carrying a pain too heavy to share. When she rang the bell for first period, she stood up slowly. Her eyes went straight to Chidi's desk. She walked there as if her legs were heavy. She placed the nylon bag on the table beside the shoes. Then she turned to face us. Her face looked like she had cried again that morning. She told us that there was something we needed to know. Her voice was shaking a little. For the first time since all this started, nobody moved. Even the ceiling fan sounded quiet. I could feel my heart beat in my throat. She said that Chidi had been sick for a long time. She said he did not tell many people because he did not want anyone to treat him like he was weak. She said she and the school tried to help, but the sickness was stronger than all of them. My chest burned when I heard that. I gripped the edge of my desk so I would not fall. She opened the nylon bag slowly. Inside it was Chidi's exercise book, the one he always kept neat. She brought it out and held it close. She said his mother wanted us to have it because school was the one place he felt safe. She said he used to tell his mother that sitting in our class made him feel like he belonged somewhere. When she said that, a tear ran down her cheek. She wiped it quickly and placed the exercise book gently beside the shoes. Seeing his book there broke something inside me. I remembered how he used to hold his books tight when he walked home. I remembered how he always flipped the pages slowly, like they were precious. Some people in the class started crying softly. Others covered their faces. My eyes burned, but no tears came yet. My body felt too full. The truth we had been scared to face was sitting on the table in front of us. Mrs. Okafor told us that Chidi passed away 2 weeks ago. She said his mother did not want it to be a shock to us, so she brought the shoes and the book when she felt strong enough. She said Chidi wanted to come back to school, but he became too weak. When she finished talking, the class became quiet again. A different kind of quiet. A heavy quiet. A sad quiet. I felt cold, even though the sun had already started shining through the window. I looked at the empty desk, at the shoes, at the book. It felt like a part of our class had been taken away forever. And even though nobody said it out loud, we all knew that nothing in our room would ever feel the same again.
After school closed that day, I walked home slowly. My legs felt heavy, as if each step carried the weight of the whole day. Even the streets felt different. The noise of children playing outside did not sound like noise anymore. It sounded far away, like something happening in another world. When I reached home, I sat on the bench outside our house and opened Chidi's drawing again. The boy in the picture looked lonely, sitting under the tree with his head bent. I touched the paper with my thumb and wondered how long he had been feeling that way. I wondered why none of us noticed. I wondered why I did not ask him if he was fine when I had the chance. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. My eyes were swollen even though I did not remember crying. On my way to school, I walked slower than usual. The sun was bright, but it felt cold. When I got to the gate, other students were walking in, whispering about what happened. Some of them looked scared. Some looked confused. But when I entered the classroom, everything went silent again. The shoes were still on the desk. The exercise book was still beside them.
but something in the room felt different. We were not afraid of the desk anymore. We were sad, but not scared. It was like we were finally ready to face the truth. During morning reading, Mrs. Okafor told us we could talk about how we felt if we wanted. She said we should not keep our feelings inside because it would only make our hearts heavier. At first, nobody talked. We just stared at our desks. Then one boy at the back raised his hand and said he wished he shared his biscuit with Chidi on the day he looked hungry. Another girl said she wished she had told him she liked his drawings. I kept my eyes on the floor because talking felt too hard. When it reached break time, I did something I had never done before. I stood up and walked to Chidi's desk. The whole class watched me. My heart was beating fast, but I kept walking. I placed his drawing inside the exercise book. The page I put it on had neat handwriting. It was his English notes from the last week he was in school. Seeing his handwriting made my eyes sting again. I closed the book gently and touched the shoes. They felt cold but soft. I whispered inside my heart that I was sorry. Sorry for not asking him if he was okay. Sorry for not looking closer. Sorry for thinking he was just quiet when he was really hurting. When I sat back down, something strange happened. The class felt lighter. Not happy, but lighter, like all of us were breathing a little better. It was as if someone finally touched the desk. The fear inside the room packed its load and left. Later that week, the school held a small remembrance for him. They placed the shoes and the book on a small table outside the classrooms. Teachers came to drop flowers. Students came to look quietly. Some wrote small messages on pieces of paper. Some just stood there for a moment before walking away. I wrote a message too, even though my hand was shaking. I wrote that he was a good boy and that his drawings made our class brighter. I wrote that I would never forget the empty desk by the window. When the remembrance ended, Mrs. Okafor told us that the desk would be used again next term, but the shoes and the exercise book would stay in her locker. She said she would keep them safe. She said they would remind her that sometimes the quietest children carry the loudest pain. On the last day of the term, I walked to the desk one more time. The sunlight was falling on it just like before. I placed my hand on the wooden surface and closed my eyes. I remembered the way Chidi used to smile softly when he drew. I remembered how he always said thank you, even for small things. I remembered how he never wanted to disturb anyone. When I opened my eyes, I took a deep breath. The desk was empty, but it did not feel lonely anymore. It felt like a story had been told there. A story that would stay with me forever. I walked out of the classroom slowly, knowing that some things change you even when you do not expect them to. And the empty desk had changed all of us.